Afternoon, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Coming Home to You network. I'm here with Mike Van Belt, and he described himself as a man's coach or a man's man. So, Mike, I'm gonna put the ball in your court, Mike, and I'm gonna ask you why the man's coach, or what encouraged you to start or to think that men needed a coach?
Yeah, well, I think people in general need coaches, really. They're to think that we can maneuver the day-to-day minutia of life all by our own all the time is a little crazy. So I have a golf coach, I've had a faith-based coach, I've had a business coach, I've had a podcast coach to help me with my podcast. And I think that's where we gain wisdom. But to your question, how did I get started in this? There was a period of my life where I was just lost. What was my why? What did I want to do in business and in life? And I just really didn't know. And it was at that point in my life where my wife had really kind of taken over for the family. She had her career full steam ahead, and our kids were really young. And she said, Mike, why don't you stay at home with the kids and figure out what in the world do you want to do with your life? And I did that. And while I was doing that, I worked with a career coach, right? I drink my own Kool-Aid. Um, and what we determined was based on what I wanted to do, the direction I wanted to go, was that while I was staying home with the kids, I hadn't completed my college degree. And so we looked at my strengths and what I liked and what I wanted to do. And I stayed at home with the kids, completed my college degree, got my degree. And at the same time, I was becoming much more community involved. I was working with nonprofits and really getting heavily involved in my church and volunteering and involved in a lot of things. And I came to realize I loved it. I loved
Mm.
nonprofits. I loved really being able to impact people in a very close up way. And I thought, this is it. This is what God has in store for me. And I looked at it and I went, but I have bigger goals. If I'm the executive director of a nonprofit somewhere, what do these top executive directors have outside of experience that I don't have? And I thought, well, they have their master's degree. So since while you're at it, why don't you get your master's degree? And I did that. And an interesting thing happened. Now nobody knew what to do with me. Nobody would
Mm.
hire me. They couldn't figure out where to place me. You've been a stay-at-home dad, you've done this, this, and this. Now you went back and college, you got your college degree. We don't know what to do with you. And I began to internalize those no's as, well, I must not be worthy. I must not, and I was really lost because as men, so much of the time, people will come up to us, they'll say, what's your name? And then what do you do? And
Yep,
our identity becomes tied to our career, what we do. I'm not saying that's right, by the way. I'm just saying that's kind of a
that's how it is. Yeah.
thing that we do. And I couldn't answer the question. And I just found myself lost. And it was about that time that I really went, what is it that you want to do? You've got the knowledge, you've got the skills, you've got the abilities. I knew some people that were doing some business consulting, and I thought, I'm going to go down this road. And so I went down that road, and I happened to meet a gentleman by the name of Paul Bailey. I'm going to call him out because he's such a good friend. And we met over lunch. We decided let's start our own net. We were in a networking group. We thought we could do it better. We were going to start our own networking group. Well, it never happened. Instead, we started a men's group. We found that we had some faith experiences that were very closely related. And we thought, well, let's go down this men's group route. And we did. We started a men's group. We really started to connect with some people. And it was 6 years ago this spring that I went to my first men's retreat. And I was there with about 300 people. And it was during that time frame, the guy that was running the camp at the time got up in front of the group and said, we're going to play 3 worship songs today. And I want you to hear these songs as in God is singing them to you. And
Mm.
they played a song by Josh Groban called You Were Loved. I've never heard it. It's not a worship song, but the words and the moment hit me like a ton of bricks, and I almost hit the floor. And it was in that moment I heard God say to me, I want an intimate relationship with you. You are my beloved son. And
Brilliant.
my world changed. And I had been a Christian all my life, but I didn't know intimacy with Christ was available. I just didn't know. It just never occurred to me, was never presented in that way. I don't even know that I was open to it. But in that moment, I heard it. And I remember looking around the room going, where do these guys go if this thing just happened to them? And I began thinking about, what does this look like? How can we help men? How do we become available? Well, of course, by the time I'd unpacked that and figured it out, COVID showed up and
Yep.
everything got closed down and our world shifted. My wife's job was eliminated with the company she was with. And at a certain point, we had to pick up and move and completely relocate to a different state. But it was really through that understanding that God's got this, I don't,
Yeah.
that I began to stop gripping the wheel so doggone hard and trying to control everything. And so thus began True Man. So True Man was the name of our men's small group. We really, it's out of scripture. It's Jesus Christ walk on earth as a true man. And we felt like he's the role model. We're not going to get to where he's at. We just need to follow what he did, and we
Yeah.
might be able to get somewhere. And so, ever since that moment 6 years ago, my life has just changed dramatically. I began the True Man podcast, really designed to help men, better dads, better fathers. We've I've been involved in 4 books. I just released. You see a theme here. I just released this book. I'm showing it on
Yeah.
video here. True Man, True Ways: A Roadmap of Discovery to the Masculine Heart. And that's really about the journey that I just told you about and some of the things that I did to get my heart back. So, I'm working on speaking, just a number of different things with the idea of, hey, fellas, we need to start the conversation and we need to learn to start asking for help instead of burying everything down deep in our soul. And we need to come together in unity, whether it's in a men's small group or whatever, so that we can learn from each other and thrive. So that's how I got involved in what I'm doing. And I just want to be there to help guys, like a group of guys that came around me at a low point in my life and were able to walk with me and look where I am today. Because had I not gone through all that, I'm pretty certain you and I wouldn't be talking. I don't know where I would be. I don't know what I would be doing. I don't think about it. I just know that the minute I stopped gripping the wheel so hard and gave God that little inch of control, that my life has gotten me to this point. And so thank you for asking the question. I love telling that story.
But what a brilliant story. And like you say, I suppose typically a man's way of doing things is looking for that control, is to grab it on tightly, where really we need to let go and allow what's already in there out. Because I believe we have everything already inside of us. We just need to let it all bubble up. And when we connect with the divine, whoa, I mean, you're such an example of that.
Very much so. And it's not just connecting with God, that is critically important. But I think getting around other men that are oriented in that way. And that's one of the first things that I noticed when when Paul and I really started connecting with other men's groups. I remember going to a few groups and I would walk in, this was really early on, and I'd be like, wow, these guys are different. You could
Yeah,
sense it in the room. You could feel it in the room. And, the thing that would go through my mind is, I want more of that. And not only do I want more of that, I know other guys want more of that. How can
yeah,
we get it to them? And so I think about it when I go to bed at night, and it's the first thing I think about in the morning. How can we do this better? How can we get bigger, stronger, faster? How do we get the message out there? How do we, so it's something that I constantly think about.
Yeah, and it's brilliant. Here in this country, we are very slow, especially males are very slow to ask for help or to even recognize that we need help. Where I know I was brought up where I was encouraged to be self-sufficient and where I didn't need anything and where I had to be able to do everything myself. And it's over the last 10 years looking at different people and from traveling around the place and seeing how different cultures approach these things, that recognizing that at this time in this country, how what you're talking about is so much needed. But there's so many males out there who are lost and who are asking for help and who are looking for something different and don't know where to go because there's women's groups for this, for that, for the other, and everything. There's support groups, but when it comes to men, there's very little. So
And
this is brilliant.
women are really good at it. Women are
Mm,
really good at being in community, and men are too. I think we fight it.
yeah,
So which, I commonly say, you know, I help men get out of their head and into their heart. And I think so much of the time the heart is what's missed. We are fixers. As men, we are fixers. We
yeah,
we like to, if somebody says, um, well, your car over there is making this noise, the immediate comeback is, well, you should take it in the shop and they should, we're trying to fix it. And
yeah,
that's a very simple example, and that may be very helpful. But in our lives, when somebody comes at you and tries to fix your life, that doesn't always work out very well. And it's one of the things I see in coaching, and I think this is a critical, and mentoring that I think is incredibly important, which is I've heard other coaches, unfortunately, say, well, I help people fix that. No, you don't. No, 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 no. You said this, and I'm a big believer in this. I think we all have what we need inside of us. What's more important for a coach or a mentor is that you ask the right questions, the deep seated questions that somebody's may not be thinking about because they're in the weeds of it, they're in the middle
yeah,
of it. And so you're asking those questions and then inviting them to explore themselves. So whatever the needs to bubble up, bubbles up. And that's critically important because ultimately people will solve their problems and
yeah,
challenges. But through the power of those questions and really they're just openness and willingness. And I talk about this, I wrote about this, in a collaborative book. It's something I'm going to be doing a lot more talking on. The power of asking for help. If you are willing and open and you're asking for help, the answers, the universe will reveal. The universe will reveal. But if you stuff it, this is what men are really good at. We
yeah,
stuff it down in our souls and we hope we never have to deal with all that bull crap.
yeah,
But it always shows up. And typically, it shows up in our relationships with our children, our relationships with our wife, our work relationships. It somehow bubbles up to the top. And then we walk around and go, I, you know, I, I've been divorced twice, and they'll blame the women, or my kids won't talk to me, and they'll blame the kids. When do you go look in the mirror? When do you take responsibility for you and your self awareness and your attitude and your happiness and whether you're smiling or not? When do you take it? And so, by the way, I'm not finger pointing here. It is not easy to go look in the mirror. I know. I spend a lot of time doing it, not out of ego, but because I want to be better. I want to
yeah,
be the best. I want to be world class. Why? So that I can spread that to the world because I want them to be their best if
yeah,
that's what they want. It's
yeah.
a choice.
Brilliant. And you say it so well, and I think I think there are more and more men opening up to this idea, and they're opening up where they're not trying to fix everything themselves, and where they are asking for help and realize that we have a thing in there called our heart. And when we connect with that, magic can happen. And we need to be able to express that and to share that. And it instead of clutching, is to open up, and once we open up to all that is, wow, that that
Intimacy and vulnerability and authenticity, for
mm,
a lot of guys that were brought up probably around the era that you and I were brought up in, those are taboo words, right? I mean, you're
yep,
supposed to tough it out. Don't cry. Don't let them see you sweat.
that's it.
All these things. And really what that creates is a level in of anxiety for a lot of people and men that they need to perform to meet certain expectations.
Yeah,
And the only person that can put expectations on you is you. But yet we're very quick to listen to the outside world and their judgments and their opinions
yep,
and ways about things. And there's this interesting thing that I think really revealed itself in a very huge way during COVID, which is this herd mentality that if everybody says go this way, we all need to go that way. I'll tell you what my world mentality is. If somebody says go that way, I'm going in the opposite
the
direction.
opposite way. Yeah,
Typically, I don't care what the media has to say. I don't care what my government has to say. They don't always have my best interests at heart.
no,
And so it's really important to be well read, well educated, to have a strong faith life where you're able to discern what in the world is going on in the world and have that wisdom so that you can make decisions for you rather
yeah,
than letting the world make decisions for you.
brilliant.
It took me a long time to figure this out, Declan.
Yeah, that's great. And I suppose like that too. I mean, in my era, it was James Cagney and John Wayne. I mean, these were the role models that we had, and which was completely different. And we need to soften that up now. We need to find better role models, and there's so much violence out there on the television and the TV that it's hard for a young male or for any male to sort of gauge which way it's supposed to be, because you see what the typical male on the show is. I say, well, this is what I should be, full of muscles and tattoos and yeah, and all this sort of stuff. Where there's another way. So we need good role models out there and good leaders, and to know that if you don't resonate with John Wayne and Clint Eastwood, that's okay. You don't have to be, because I think once we start connecting with our heart and like you said again, connecting with spirit. For if we don't have that connection, really, we don't have anything. So important. So important.
Yeah, and it's funny. It feels like and I always talk about this masculine world that Hollywood has tried to create, and it's really swung
Mhm.
a lot. So, when I was a kid, I grew up at the tail end of John Wayne's career, but he was still present. You still
Yeah.
knew who that tough guy was, and then you had all these other kind of quote unquote tough guys come along. But it really swung to the point where now Hollywood wants to present men as very passive and very sometimes dumb and really
Mm.
degrade masculinity. And then they talk about these crazy topics like toxic masculinity and things like that. You know, as men, maybe we need to own that.
Yeah.
There are some things out there that men have done that have degraded this idea of masculinity. But
Mm.
true masculinity in my mind, and I don't have a hard and fast definition, but true masculinity is about living from the heart. It is
Mm.
about caring for people and loving one another. That doesn't mean you can't be tough. I still
Yeah.
like football. You know, I still like football, American football. I
Right.
should clarify.
Yeah, yeah, no, I figured that's what you're referring to.
Although the Irish football it was pretty cool. We did catch a little of that a
Oh,
couple
with
of
the
years.
Gaelic, yeah,
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 the Gaelic football was really cool. We happened to be in a sports bar when we were over in Ireland watching it, and I was just floored at how excited everybody was.
yeah,
It was just amazing. But
yeah. No pads, no shields.
yeah, I mean that's toughness right there. I mean
Yeah,
they don't have help, but yeah, those guys are tough. And that, that's cool in its own way. They're this really kind of gladiators, and there's a coolness to that, but there's also a coolness to being in touch with your heart and being able to
yeah,
communicate, with your wife in a very open and vulnerable way about what you want, about your needs, just as she'll communicate them to you. And I'm just using that as an example, but those are all, we should be able to hold a door open for a woman out of respect and not worry that they're going to yell at us because they don't want a man to hold the door open for them. We should be
yeah.
able to comment about what a woman's wearing as long as it's done respectfully and
Exactly.
honorably, those types of things. But we live in a world where a lot of times those things are questioned.
Yeah,
And so I think what I've seen happen more than anything is we don't have men passing this information down to their children anymore.
yeah,
This whole idea of story has kind of left us, and so we've allowed children to grow up with devices like mobile phones and allowed them to do these things. And we need to get back to storytelling and relationship. These are, to me, are very masculine things. We need to teach these kids about apprenticeships and rites of passage and
yeah.
just all things that almost seem that that we don't even talk about anymore. That I think are really critically important. And Declan, I'll say this: when I got involved in my coaching, I thought my audience was me. I thought it was kind of a middle aged guy that had lived a little bit, thinking about their legacy. And I've had this uh, epiphany recently because I've had so many young guys almost coming out of the woodwork contacting me and saying, I want to talk to you. And it really has hit me that so many of these young men haven't had a man in their life
Right.
help them learn how to adult and be the man that they want to be, and mentor them. And they're looking. And some people look at me and they go, well, this year I've been married to my wife for 29 years. I have two children. My son is 22, my daughter is 20. They go to college. I look like what we've been told is the typical all-American family. Not that we don't have our
Mm.
challenges, everybody does. But the point is that for a lot of these young guys, I'm safe. I'm what
Right.
they want their families to look like. They don't want their family to look like my mom's over here, my dad's over here, and
Mm.
seeing some of the. And so even at this point, I'm going, I'm asking myself more and more, who is my audience outside of men? Like, who is my audience? Where do I need to reach these people? Because I've not even been reaching out to these young people. They're coming to me. They're finding me. And I'm like, oh, well, this is interesting. And
Mm.
I think part of it is this self-awareness that these young people bring to the table. And we can, talk. A lot of people will say, well, the Generation Z and they're lazy. You know what? It's just a different generation. And when
Exactly.
you put them down, you're not helping them.
Mm.
And so I'm at a point where I'm really going, how do I need to maneuver through this new culture that is going on? Generation Z, by the way, the largest purchaser of Bibles right now. They are buying Bibles in volumes. So it's interesting to see that when we put this young generation down, be careful. be careful. They're watching this and they don't like
Yeah,
it.
yeah. And that's it. I mean, they realize well, you can see you'd have to be blind, but even blind, you just have to be in this world now to know that's what's going on is not right and that there's a different way. There has to be a different way. We can't be going on this way. Aside from the fact that, the rise of the divine feminine, to sort of rebalance everything, to put us all back in balance. And we need a change and we need to have, yeah, I salute you, sir, for doing what you're doing because it's so much needed in the world. No, it is, and it's like I said, it's something which I saw talking to a couple of friends of mine over the last 10 years that there is a big need. And this was for people of my age, that we needed to have this forum as well where we could talk and we could be vulnerable and not be worried about being scorned at or being anything like that, because again, we're not John Wayne and we're not Humphrey Bogart and all these people, and even they had the soft part. They weren't allowed to show it. So I mean, there's a lot of confusion out there as to how a man is supposed to be, how a man is supposed to act, and what way we're supposed to be. And I think it's once we can have these forums and we can all learn from each other. And
Oh, 100%.
you know,
And
and like that.
there's so many different ways to do it.
Mm,
I mean, sit around a campfire, we talked about it,
yeah.
have a pint of Guinness and enjoy each other's company, but go more than an inch deep. I mean, put yourself
Mm,
to the test. Really ask vulnerable questions from people, and I really feel like um, people want is that men really do want to have these in-depth conversations and learn.
mm,
Because, if we all walk around going, "How's your day going?" "Fine, I'm okay." I mean,
yeah.
it's fake, man. That's
Yeah.
fake. And if you want to play at that level, I like to call it just playing in the shallow end of the pool,
Yeah.
then play in the shallow end of the pool. By the way, people drown in the shallow end of the pool.
Yep.
Go out to the deep end and really explore what's there with yourself and with other guys, and you're going to be amazed what comes out of it.
Mm, brilliant. Mike, again, I salute you. So everybody listening, if this is resonating with you now, please reach out now to Mike. Um, he has got so much to share, and this is work which is so much needed in the world right now. Is that men need to open up their hearts and open up their minds and to be curious and start asking questions of themselves and of others. So thank you all for watching, everybody. Uh, the links will be below in the comments later on, so you'll be able to reach out and contact Mike. So, Mike, is there anything that you'd like to leave our listeners with before we sign off?
I it just if you're really really interested in bettering your best and become the best person you could be, I would just encourage you to pick up the Bible. Just read what's in there. Just learn a little bit. Be a little curious, and you'll be amazed at what comes out of that. And that's fresh on my mind because I just came from my men's small group. So there you go. But yeah, and if you'd like to explore more, I'll just give him my email address if that's okay.
Yeah,
Is that
absolutely.
is
We're
that all
good.
right,
Yeah,
Dan?
yeah.
If you're curious about what anything I had to talk about today, you can always reach out to me at Mike at truemanlifecoaching.com. And that's my website as well, truemanlifecoaching.com. A lot of information out there. My calendar's available. And I always offer an exploratory call for people if they're looking for somebody to walk alongside them. But yeah, thank you for having me on, Declan. I always love talking about this stuff.
Beautiful. Thank you, sir. Take care, everybody. Thank you.